Welcome in. It's episode number 39 of the St0ner Sports Radio Podcast. Joining me once again is my friend and co-host Zach Huffman. We are going to be talking everything Colorado and realignment into the Big 12. What other teams do the Big 12 have on the docket that could possibly slide on over? And is the Pac-12 just deader than a box of rocks? We'll go over Big 10 football win totals, and we will give you who we think is going to be over under their projected win slots. And we'll talk about Harbaugh's suspension, 4-game suspension for head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. We'll give you all our thoughts on that. Welcoming you once again into this episode. Zach, how are we doing this Be Happy Friday?
We're doing good. You know, it's a solid Friday. It's sunny outside. We're having a good time here in Oklahoma. It's very hot, but not as hot as it's been. So we're doing good.
Yeah, let's just jump right into this, right? This has been kind of the poppin' story the last 24 hours plus. Colorado officially announces they will be moving back into the Big 12 in 2024. Give me your thoughts on that. I'm excited. How do you feel?
Good to have him back, I guess. I mean, I'm gonna enjoy being able to watch, Deion Sanders lead that program into the Big 12. Hopefully he's still a coach at that point. We'll be able to see them go against, I think, better competition than you usually get to see in the Pac-12. And who knows? They're probably going to bring some other schools in. I'm hearing Nebraska is rumored to be coming back. So I think it's good. I think we're definitely correct though in the fact that the Pac-12 is dead. It is dead. Oregon probably moving to the Big Ten. Our USC and UCLA are already on the way out. And now Colorado's moving. I mean, it's only a matter of time before Utah's out of there too. I mean, let's be honest. It's rough. It's rough out there in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it's just disintegrating right in front of our face. Really, I mean, it's kind of been a little shocking how quickly this thing has kind of devolved into just the Pac-12 just not existing in 2024 or even 2025. I mean, because we don't know really how quick these teams are going to bail, right? I mean, we think they're going to bail. We know USC and UCLA are probably out of there to the Big Ten. Oregon might follow them over there. And the thing is I think I would probably rather have Oregon in the Big 12 than in the Big 10, along with probably Oregon State and both Arizona schools. I mean, if you could get Utah in there as well, I mean, this just kind of, again, is just going to kind of give us the collision course into these super conferences, right?
Yeah, we talked about that a long time ago, I think. I think we're going to get to the point that we have just like two big conferences. You're going to have the SEC and then the combination of this Big 12, Big 10, super conferences. I mean, the SEC, I would already consider to be a super conference, especially since OU and Texas are moving over there in 2024. So I think it's only a matter of time before we see probably the Big 10 and the Big 12 start to combine a little bit. And we just get, two conferences that meet in the national championship every year, probably. I mean, that's probably how it's going to end up going. I think we're going to have it look a lot more like kind of almost like a Super Bowl structure where you have the two champions of the conferences,
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right. You think the SEC probably swallows up the ACC with it, and maybe you even go even to those northeastern schools up there, right? I mean, you get like your New York, Connecticut kind of schools going in, but that could not happen anytime quickly because what I'm hearing through multiple sources is that the Big 12 is very interested in UConn right now, which seems a little out of the ordinary. But the commissioner,
that's way out of there.
Yeah, the commissioner for the Big 12 has said openly that he wants to use kind of his political power that he has as Big 12 commissioner. He's gotten a lot of high praise after bringing Colorado back in, and he thinks that because previous Big 12 commissioners have not wanted UConn because they're not very good football team, he thinks there's not a lot of emphasis on that due to the fact that they're undervaluing the basketball programs, both of those he thinks bringing in that basketball uh, culture from UConn could benefit the Big 12 in those areas, and he thinks that the previous commissioners were just too focused on the football aspect, and really thinks that they are devaluing UConn, um, way under the table. But he has openly stated he wants to go grab the Huskies. I mean, what is your thought on bringing UConn in from way out there out east, and the fact that people think that's the next team that's probably going to come to the Big 12, not another Pac-12 school?
Well, this is the first time hearing about the Yukon situation, I guess. I just haven't seen anything about that, but that's really good for the basketball side of things on the Big 12, especially. Finally get a little bit more competition for Kansas than there normally is. The schools like Texas that are always pretty good. That's good for the conference and the basketball side. Now the football side, Yukon is, I would say, on the come up a little bit on the football side. It seems like they're starting to get in the conversation for being the top 25. Um, so hopefully we can go out there and get UConn. That's a huge leap for the Big 12, though. I mean, that's a lot of travel
Yeah,
commitments that you have to make up there to UConn. And I mean, the closest school in the Big 12 to UConn is what?
West Virginia.
Yeah, West Virginia. I mean,
I mean,
geez, I guess if they
followed
want to
by now
start expanding
UCF.
out there northeast,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, and that was shocking to me. I heard that this morning. Literally, I was driving to the store and heard Chris Plank on KREF talking about the fact that that's what the Big 12 commissioner wants to do is reach out there to Connecticut and grab them because he wants to bolster the Big 12 and other sports other than football, and thinks that the previous commissioners have just been looking at just football and haven't been looking at other aspects to bring some of these other teams in, and thinks that he's the guy to probably change that. And I admire that because as we
yeah,
said, I mean we need basketball to be good as well in the Big 12. You've seen kind of a decline of teams that aren't Texas and aren't Kansas and aren't Texas Tech that haven't really, and Baylor that haven't really done anything. I mean, OSU's kind of been mid. OU has not been good at all. Kansas State's been kind of up and down. I mean, they had a good season this last year, but that hasn't really been consistent for them. You look at West Virginia, they've been at the bottom. Iowa State completely fallen out. I mean, now you bring in UCF, which is not really a basketball school either. I mean, Houston, they're good at basketball. I mean, they've had high
yeah,
seeds in the tournament, but will that translate into the Big 12 with better competition? You're not in Conference USA anymore. So or the American, whatever, wherever they were at, I don't even care because the
yeah.
competition was just so mid. And you look at other teams that we have in there, bringing somebody like UConn in that respect is good. I think that also the women's basketball for sure is definitely a plus because we don't really have anybody in women's basketball right now, Big 12 wise, that's really doing anything. I mean, Kansas has had some decent years, but I mean, and Texas has been but really
Texas, yeah.
really it's been either Baylor, but after Kim Mulkey left for LSU, they've kind of been just tanking. And you look at other teams that they have in women's basketball that they're not doing anything. I mean, look at South Carolina and UConn, and that's pretty much been it. I mean, LSU, you can throw them in there because they're the previous national champions, but I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't think they're going to repeat or anything.
Iowa,
Iowa, yeah, like with Caitlin Clark, I mean, that's something to look at.
yeah, that'll last for the next year.
Yeah, and then after that, like, where is Iowa at? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, when it comes to women's college basketball, there's not really a lot of dominant teams. A lot of teams are good, but there's no teams that can really compete with those 4 or 5 schools right now. So I mean, I think that going out and getting Connecticut, like you said, is interesting because of the travel, right? I mean, you're already having to, possibly have a team like UConn travel all the way out to BYU. You're having BYU having to travel all the way up there to stores. I mean, it's wild
ridiculous.
the traveling that's going to have to happen if they end up bringing them in. But I do think that as far as other sports are concerned that aren't football, it's the right move to make if you're wanting to make a splash in the hoop world. I think that's a great grab because if Houston, the men's side of Houston basketball continues to improve, I've liked what Kelvin Sampson and them have done, and having him back in the Big 12 is a big thing. I know OU fans, would much rather probably have him, as their head coach again rather than have him in Houston. But I mean, he's been doing a great job down there. I don't know. I feel like it's an interesting choice. Because I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, just grab the Arizona schools, grab Utah." That makes sense.
Yeah,
But grabbing the Huskies is kind of out of left field. But I don't hate it.
yeah, I don't hate it. I think it's really good, especially for women's basketball, like you pointed out. It's just it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough logistics wise for the Big 12 to kind of pull all that off. They're going to have to start getting more schools in the conference, in between, those schools like going all the way out to, Kansas State, and all the way out to Manhattan, from where I don't where's UConn at? Is it
Stores,
Hartford?
Stores. I think it's Stores, Connecticut.
Stores,
Yeah,
Stores, Connecticut.
Stors. I think. I'm not sure. I know it's not Bristol. Um, but
I
I mean,
mean, geez, like
yeah.
that's a huge commitment that's a huge commitment for travel. That's expensive. And with all the new regulations concerning money in college football and in college sports in general, who knows how much money can be spared for, better travel, maybe more comfortable travel for those kind of distances. But I mean, geez, that's a full day of travel for some competitions there. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
it's gonna get ridiculous.
in college basketball is what you got to think about the most, right? You're playing 2 to 3 games a week. I mean, if you
Yeah,
have a Connecticut in the middle of like your week, and you have to go to like Texas and Kansas like as well, like during that week, as far as like the state's concerned, not specific team wise, but you're traveling to Kansas and Texas, or you know, at BYU, and then you have a game after BYU. You have just a 1 day break, and then you play Connecticut the next day. I mean, it's just kind of wild. I mean,
yeah,
you're not
and
gonna.
then you go down to UCF.
Yeah, like what the fuck? I mean, it's just kind of like what the hell is going on? I mean
Yeah,
it's kind of wild, but I think that also you have to think about the fact that this could help the TV deal, right? I mean, you're bringing in this other team. If more money's on the table for TV, I mean, maybe that makes up some of the cost. But again, like you said, logistically, I mean, it doesn't really make much sense. But as far as like bringing a higher quality like sports and other avenues that aren't football, it's not a terrible move. I just think the traveling logistics are really tough to balance.
yeah, yeah, I agree. The travel is gonna be really tough, for especially for basketball, just because of the intensity of the schedule. So I don't hate the move for publicity reasons, but it's gonna be tough to pull off, and I'll be interested to see how the commissioner can do that.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what he ends up wanting to do, then good for him. But you got to bring somebody else in as well. Maybe like Rutgers. I don't know. You got to snag somebody else up there that makes sense. Because having West Virginia be the closest team to that is kind of wild. Who would you like to see
Yeah.
the Big 12 bring in, other than Colorado and what seems to be Nebraska as well?
Well, since we don't seem to care about geography anymore,
Yes,
um,
yeah, no.
and conference alignment, I say go get Utah. If you can, go get Utah. If you can't get Utah, go get Oregon State. I hate to separate Oregon and Oregon State, but if you can't get Utah, go get Oregon State, I think, or go try to grab Arizona.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
if they can do that, I think they'll be decent. I just think that if they can, I mean, because you could say the same thing about Arizona, right? You grab Arizona, the football is kind of mid, but it hasn't been awful, and the basketball seems to be pretty up there. They've never really fallen off
yeah,
terribly. So I think that you have another good opportunity there with Arizona if you can tag them. I don't know if I'd want to bring
great
Arizona.
softball school too.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I'd want to bring Arizona State with them per se, because I don't really think that they have anything really to offer as far as improvement. Pretty much, in my opinion, be bringing in another West Virginia type program where they're not, terrible, but it's like, what are they going to give you other than the ability to have Arizona and Arizona State continue to play each other? And you're trying to preserve if you bring Sun Devils. Um, I like
Yeah,
I like the Utah idea because you have that Utah BYU rivalry that you could definitely continue. And I think, like you said, they
mhm,
got a good softball program. They've got a decent basketball program, but again, like not anything that's going to really excite you. And the football has been on the upswing, but does that continue if they move into a conference like?
yeah. I think that Utah in particular is going to be fine football wise, going into the Big 12. I think they've proven that they are a powerhouse in the Pac-12, in my opinion. They're consistently being able to, uh, beat teams like USC, who were supposed to be the undisputed Pac-12 champions last year. So I think Utah coming to the Big 12 is going to be really, really good for the football aspect, especially with OU and Texas leaving. And I think, like you said, the rivalries that they could preserve. with Utah and BYU. You're going to have to replace a lot of rivalries that you're missing, like Bedlam, like OU and Texas. You're starting to lose a lot of those, traditions that bring a lot of money and a lot of revenue in for the Big 12. So, hopefully they can grab someone like Utah, and like you said, maybe Oregon. If they can grab Oregon, that'd be insane. But oh my God, can you imagine going from Yukon to
Yeah.
Oregon to Florida to Houston to Kansas to West Virginia? Like, geez. Then you gotta go to Iowa State. Like that whole the geography is insane right now for the Big 12. But if we're just not worried about that anymore, then yeah, you got to grab one of those West Coast schools. You got to.
I agree. Um, so I think that's pretty much wraps up realignment right now. I mean, we have a bunch of stuff rumored to happen, but right now it looks like Colorado's for sure going to happen. Nebraska seems to be almost for sure that's going to happen. Um, and as of right now, it looks like Connecticut's in the crosshairs, which again, crazy, but I mean that's what he wants to do. So I mean,
That's what he's doing.
if he wants to do that, good for him. Let's jump into the Big Ten. So last episode we went through the Big 12 and gave you win totals and kind of gave you what we thought was going to happen. I've got the win totals here for these Big Ten schools. Um, let's go ahead and start off with first team on the list, Illinois. Right, the over under is at and a half, and
Under.
they're favoring the 7 at minus 130. They're favoring the 7. Um, now the analysis on this is that last year the win total was half. Um, and they ended up getting 8 wins last year. Um, and people think that 7-5 is doable. They've upgraded their quarterback. They've got road games against Kansas, Minnesota, Purdue, and Maryland. Kind of the 4 games you have to look at to really kind of gauge how well the Illini are playing. That Kansas game is going to be interesting. I think if you're looking at um, possible wins that they off, Kansas is on there. They think the Illinois is going to beat Kansas. They think they're going to beat Toledo, FAU. They think they're going to beat Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, and Northwestern. They think the losses are Penn State, Purdue, Wisconsin, and Iowa. What are your thoughts on the Illini coming into this?
Um, I would hit the under. I would think they win 6 games. I don't think they beat Kansas. I think Kansas is going to beat them this year, especially with the upgraded quarterback play that Kansas is getting out of Jalen Daniels. And some of those other road games are tough, but I could see Maryland beating them. Um,
Yeah,
so I think that would be what 5 wins if all those other wins are true and they lose to Maryland and Kansas. But realistically, I'd see them probably beating Maryland, but I think they definitely lose to Kansas, which brings them down to that 6 win total.
I mean, and
Yeah.
I agree. I think Kansas is kind of. I think people are kind of crapping on Kansas a little too early here. I mean, with what they've got coming back, and like you said, with the quarterback play that Jayhawks have, I mean, I don't know. I mean, did Illinois really bring in a quarterback that's gonna be able to compete with somebody like that? I don't know. I know they've still got that good running back, Chase. What's it? Nuts. Chase is it Chase Brown?
I don't even know.
I
Illinois is just such a mid program that I just 8 wins is sort of an anomaly for them, and I don't. I think they're getting overhyped on this win total of 6.5, especially if the 7 is favored. Like I'm hitting that. I'm slamming that under. I'm slamming it.
all right. Hey, I mean, I can't disagree with you. I think if it only takes that Kansas win turning into a loss to give you that 6. I mean, I think I'm with you on that. I think I can slam the 6 on here and take your chances with that. Indiana's next on the list here. Their over under is 4 wins, and they're favoring the under. They think this team can only win 3 games this year. They think the Hoosiers are going to be poo poo pee pee, and they think the only 3 wins they're going to get are Rutgers, Indiana State, and Akron. They think they're going to lose the rest of the gamut, which includes Louisville, Illinois, Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Purdue. So I mean, not looking good. Um, it's. I mean, what are your thoughts on the Hoosiers? I mean, they just look like they're going to be toilet bowl city here.
Um, I think they'll win 4. I mean, I don't know about 3 is tough. That's another program that's so tough to judge because they're sometimes they're decent, but all right, what's the schedule again?
So they've got Louisville, got Illinois, got Ohio State, at Maryland, and they're on the road in Illinois. So at Illinois, at Maryland, at Michigan, at Penn State, which probably are all losses. You have Wisconsin
Yeah.
and Michigan State at home, Louisville, and then they've got on the road against Purdue. I mean, that's a tough schedule.
Yeah, never mind. I'm probably hitting that 3.
Yeah, I mean, and the other home and the only three wins they have on here for them are all home games. Indiana State, Akron, and Rutgers are all at home. So
That's tough.
I think the only other game you could possibly say that gives them that fourth win is maybe Illinois. Because like you said, I mean that's kind of the team right now where yes they're coming off of an 8-win season, but is that kind of success gonna continue? History will tell you it probably won't. They seem to be like a roller coaster. Have a good year, then they have a bad year, then they have a decent year, then they have a good year, then they have a bad year. I feel like they kind of go up and down pretty frequently. So I mean, and I don't know. I mean, again, how good is Maryland going to be? They still got Tua's brother quarterbacking, so I mean, you have a decent quarterback. But it's just, I think that grabbing any of those wins on the road, I mean, you're not winning against Penn State or Michigan, and definitely probably not winning at home against Ohio State. Um, I mean, Purdue maybe. I don't know how good Purdue is going to be. I mean, it's on the road though, and night game, like you know how dangerous that can be. Uh, I did just not looking good for the Hoosiers. So maybe
Not looking good.
I mean that fourth win, probably Illinois is the one you would probably put the money on to be like that's your fourth win. But I don't see them getting above 4. I think 4 is the ceiling, and they're going to need some help to get that for sure. Tough year for the Hoosiers. Next on the list is Iowa. People are picking the over 7.5. They think Iowa gets 8 games this year. Here's the games they think Iowa's going to win. They think they're going to beat Utah State. They think at home. They think they're going to beat Iowa State on the road. They think they are going to beat Western Michigan at home, Michigan State at home, Illinois at home, Purdue at home, Minnesota at home, Western at home, Rutgers at home. And they think all their losses are going to be on the road against State, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. They've got Nebraska beating Iowa. They don't have them losing to Iowa State on the road, which I think would be a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I would take Iowa State in that scenario, especially on the road. So I think I would put my win total at 7 for Iowa right now. I think the Hawkeyes, they're obviously, horrible on offense, but the defense is just good enough that they can muster 7 wins pretty much any year they really, have a subpar offense, but not a terrible offense. They're going to put up like 7 wins. So yeah, I think I'm not taking the 8 wins like they are. I think they probably do lose to Iowa State, and I don't know if they lose to Nebraska either. So that's an interesting scenario.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is I think I would might have swapped the Nebraska and Iowa State games. Like if you're
Yeah,
gonna give them 8, maybe swap those. And the thing is again you have Illinois as a win on here. I don't know. I mean, again, that seems like that could be a toss-up game. And like you said, the offense has not really improved. They didn't really get anybody in the transfer portal to improve that offense. And you know that was the struggle last year was the offense. Um, I mean, they do a good job of winning games despite never scoring points. And they won 8 last year without really scoring any points. That defense is out. Um, but they don't have them losing a single home game, and I just don't think that's real.
yeah. I can't imagine that. 7, possibly 6.
I mean, yeah,
We'll see. We'll see for Iowa.
I'm smashing the fuck on that. I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't see 8 happening for this. I think that people will kind of see that happen when they play Iowa State that second game of the year. That's the one you got to look at as kind of the measuring stick. If they blow Iowa State out, Iowa State probably, the total we had for them probably select the under because that's going to be a big sign about how good they're going to be. And Iowa State's got Oklahoma State week 4, and that's the game that we kind of circled for Oklahoma State. That if they win their first game against Arizona State, what people think they probably are, they think that game's going to be close, but they think they should win that game. If they convincingly win that game, then they should beat Iowa State as well. And if Iowa State ends up being 1-3 by the time that game is over, including the Oklahoma State game, I think that maybe you would have a chance at saying that Iowa wins 8 games. But I don't see them not losing. I think they're gonna probably drop
Yeah.
one. But that doesn't mean they can't win one on the road. I mean, they have losses at Wisconsin. I don't know how good Wisconsin is going to be. I know they've got some quarterbacks coming in. Um, I don't know if that's going to change a huge trajectory for Badgers. I mean, not a question mark Big Ten, but I think I'm with you. The under for Iowa
For
Hawks.
sure.
This one, the next one's Maryland. So right now, Vegas is favoring under 7. They're putting the win total right at 7, but they're favoring the under. Whoever wrote this column says pick the over 7. So they think they're going to win 8 games. And here are the wins that they have for Terrapins. They have Towson as a win at home, Charlotte as a win at home, Virginia as a win at home, Illinois as a win at home, Indiana as a win at home, and then on the road at Northwestern and Rutgers, with the only losses being to Michigan State, Ohio State, and Nebraska. Michigan on the road, Penn State at home. So, I mean, and the thing is, the schedule kind of sets up where Maryland could start out 5-0 on the season. So they're selecting them to go 8-4 this year. I I think they could drop that Illinois game, and I think they could maybe drop the Virginia game.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Um, I don't want to overhype Maryland. I mean, I know that they're pretty good this year. I know that their roster is pretty decent. They have a lot of talent in the wide receiver core, and obviously they have Tua's brother in at quarterback. So, I mean, I don't want to underhype them either. Um, so, I mean, 7 wins is a really good line for them, I
Yeah,
think.
it's
Um,
solid. That's I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't touch it.
yeah, I would like hit the 7. Like, I would
Yeah.
stay on 7. I
Yeah, just
wouldn't.
exactly 7. Like, I mean, because on DraftKings you can put exact win totals in. So I mean, if you want to
Yeah,
slam that exact 7, that might be the sweet spot for you. Because I mean, the other option is 6-6, and I don't really see them being bad enough to be 6-6. I mean, their home opener
yeah,
for the Big Ten is at Michigan State, which I think, like this article says, is probably the measuring stick for how well this season's going to go for the Terrapins. But I mean, they have them starting out 3-0 against Towson, Charlotte, and Virginia. I just that Virginia game is kind of scary because Virginia they can jump up and bite you sometimes. I mean they're not going to be a powerhouse team in the ACC, but I mean they've got decent athletes out there, and I mean they're going to give Maryland a run for their money. And Maryland, if they turn the ball over 9,000 times, it's GG's. I mean that was their big thing was just
yeah, yeah. I mean, as long as the quarterback play improves, they should get to 7 wins. I mean, maybe if their offense is just improves significantly, I could see 8 wins. I don't. I think their ceiling is probably 8 wins, but I think their floor is probably 6 wins. So that 7 is just really just a sweet spot for them.
I think if you want to bet on this, I would say just go ahead and do the exact win total at 7 because I think that, like you said, is Michigan is next on the list here, and they've got them at 11 wins. The line is 10.5, but they're favoring the 11. Last season, Michigan and Ohio State met. Both teams were 11-0 when they met, and of course, Michigan ended up winning that game. Um, they have Michigan losing to Penn State this year as their only loss. It's on the road in Happy Valley. They got them winning the rest of their games, which Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Indiana, Maryland on the road, Rutgers at home, Nebraska and Minnesota, and Michigan State on the road, and Ohio State at home. So got them beating Ohio State again this year. I mean, what are your thoughts on the Wolverines? And is this another team where we're going to be seeing them in the playoff race alongside Ohio State, or are we going to see them over Ohio State with one of another Big 12 team maybe sneaking in? And maybe even have Clemson maybe back in the mix this year, where we only have one team from really each conference. Or if you want to go with the two SEC, theory, I mean, maybe that happens, but I mean, where do you look at the Wolverines here on this 10.5?
I think they probably hit 11 wins. I just I think they beat Ohio State this year. It's tough to say that, anyone's gonna beat Marvin Harrison Jr. this year. But I mean, geez, Michigan is they look good. Their defense is stout. Obviously they had a tough loss to TCU to end their season last year, but
Turnovers.
um,
That was the key, was turnovers in
turnovers.
that game. So I mean,
Yeah.
if they can play clean football, we know what they're capable of.
Yeah, they're gonna play great football, I think. I have them winning the Big Ten, and with that, getting a spot in the college football playoff. But if we're talking about whole playoff theories, I'm probably thinking two SEC teams. It just seems like it's gonna happen. I think we probably have another year where we don't see a Big 12 team in there unless OU seems to have a fantastic year.
Texas, yeah.
Um, yeah,
Which
I don't
I
think
know you don't
Texas
want to
will,
see
but
that, but I'm saying those are probably your two best options. If
yeah. So, I'm thinking probably we're gonna have, and here's my thing. I know we were talking about LSU earlier, right? You're talking about LSU being significantly overhyped. I think LSU is going to be in the SEC championship
again,
again. Um, and with that, I think that means that theoretically they could go 11-2, right? So 11-2, only lost to Georgia, who's probably 13-0. What are we thinking? I
I mean,
mean,
I think it depends on how well Alabama plays, right? I mean, because if Alabama beats LSU, and it's Alabama and Georgia playing for a second time in the SEC championship instead of LSU, then you can forget about the Tigers.
yeah.
But I think it's a race between them and Alabama. So it's going to come down to that matchup between LSU and Alabama. It's going to come down to whether or not they can pull that off again. And then it just depends on how well Alabama's quarterback plays. He's good. I don't have any problems with. I don't think he's, oh my god, top draft pick material, but I think he's good enough to get the job done with the talent he has at his disposal for them to beat a team like LSU. But again, that was a game centered around turnovers for Alabama, and they just couldn't stop that offense. In the end, the defense just has kind of been on a downward trajectory for Alabama the last couple of years. And I think that they've just kind of lacked on getting a lot of those recruits, and those recruits have gone to Georgia instead, and you've seen the results of that. But when it comes to Michigan as a whole and what this means for them, it just means that they're going to have an 11-win season to give themselves a chance, and they're going to have to make it 12. If they can beat whoever they are matched up against in the pack in the Big Ten championship game.
Well, let me throw something at you though.
Okay,
Let me throw something at you in the SEC. Uh, Tennessee and Alabama SEC championship.
I like it.
I think Tennessee has the capability to beat Georgia this year. You know,
You like Joe Milton
quarterback
that much?
play. I think quarterback play is somehow improved, and we wouldn't think that after the season that Hendon Hooker had last season. We wouldn't think that their quarterback play could really improve that significantly. But Joe Milton seems to be that guy. So maybe we see a Heisman season from Joe Milton. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. I think Caleb Williams probably has it in the bag for a Heisman season repeat, but Joe Milton is probably his biggest threat for that repeat. So if that becomes the case, Tennessee ends their regular conference play. They're in their regular season 12-0. Um, I mean, geez, that's with a win against Georgia, then they're probably meeting Alabama and or probably it's probably going to be Alabama or LSU. It's probably Alabama, right? Um, Alabama Tennessee SEC championship. Both teams 12-0. Even if you know even if Alabama's 11-1, and Alabama win against a Tennessee team that's 12-0, both those teams get in the playoff. Like
So,
full
so
stop, I
they
think.
don't play each other in the regular season like last year.
The Tennessee and Georgia, they should,
No,
right?
Tennessee and Alabama. Didn't they
Yeah,
play?
no, they won't play in the regular season. They'll match up
They
though.
played last year
In
though, didn't
the
they?
Yeah, they did, but they
But
shouldn't
is
this
that in
year.
every other year? Oh no, they play
I'm
they
not
play
sure.
again this year. They play again October 21st.
Oh, I thought they would. They should.
They,
Tennessee plays Georgia though,
yeah,
right?
in Bryant Denny Stadium, it's Tennessee versus Alabama.
Oh, jeez.
So I mean that
Never mind.
that theory might be out the window with that. Um,
Yeah, never mind there. Honestly,
yeah. So
I
I
didn't know
mean,
they were playing Alabama this year.
yeah. So yeah. So there goes that. But I mean, I love how this devolved into SEC talk. Shows you how good the Big Ten is. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that Michigan could definitely sneak their way in if they have the kind of season that they're projecting, which is over the 10.5. Which I mean, according to the schedule, I like it. If the only loss is going to be Penn State, I guess I'll take it. I mean, I mean,
Take it, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Penn State's looking pretty good, but I don't know what they've got their win total at because the next team on the list is the Spartans of Michigan State. They have the over/under at 4.5 wins after their abysmal season last year. But you know, this article says 6-6. They said take the over. Um, Vegas is favoring the over at -180. So if you want to make any money, you have to slam the under and say they're only going to win four. But this article says they could win six, and here's the six they have. The Spartans winning against. They have Central Michigan as a W, which is not going to be a cakewalk for them. We know how tough Michigan plays their non-conference team, Oklahoma State. Um,
Oh yeah,
yeah, Richmond, which is probably a W. I don't think the Spiders are that good. They're on the road against Indiana, which we've already discussed. Indiana's probably a dumpster fire, so I guess you can give them that win. They have Maryland on here as a win, which again, I like Maryland. I think that they're going to be a lot better than people think they are, so that's probably questionable for me. On the road at Rutgers as a win, and Nebraska at home as a win. So they must not be very high on Nebraska because they're on a lot of people's
yeah.
lists. Article. Losses include Washington at home. They think that Michigan State's going to lose on the road to Iowa. They think they're going to lose at home to Michigan, on the road at Minnesota, on the road at Ohio State, and at home Penn State. Which the only one I would probably question would be maybe the Minnesota game because I don't know how good Minnesota is going to be. But they have that as a loss for Spartans as well. I think that was going to be a slugfest. What are your thoughts on the Spartans coming in? They had a good year in 2021 and then had a really bad year last year.
Yeah, I think 6-6 is a fair assessment. I think we're going to see a bounce back from last season probably, but um, God, 4.5 is tough. I would never slam that under on a program like Michigan State. I mean, you're. I think with the program that is good at the Spartans, you're probably going to get 6 at least every year. I think last season was an anomaly. I think they probably got hit pretty hard by some COVID stuff, if I had to guess, up there in Michigan, recruitment wise. So Hmm, I could see last season being, not necessarily the blame of the coaching staff, nor necessarily the program itself, but rather just not having the best talent. So hopefully they recruit a little bit better and they have a better season this year with the recruits they have. I think their ceiling is probably 8 wins. Um,
But yeah, I think they could nab that Iowa or that Minnesota game. I think those two that they have as losses, those could easily flip to wins depending on how well the Spartans are. I could see eight. Yeah.
so yeah, I think probably 8 wins is their ceiling. I think 5 wins is a solid floor
Yeah.
for Michigan State. I don't think that they're going to win less than 5 games.
I mean, look, if you're gonna bet on the Spartans, which again, the confidence here with this is between a shrug and hiding underneath a blanket right now. I mean, this is a crapshoot considering what they did last year, which was abysmal, and before that, which was way above what people thought they were gonna do. So I mean, it's kind of gone back and forth with them. So I mean, if you're going by those swings, this should be an upswing from last year. The games that just kind of concern me as far as wins. Again, Maryland's on this list. Nebraska is on this list, and we know that both of those teams. Matt Rule's a good coach. I like Matt Rule up there in Lincoln. I think that he's make the right changes. I think when you have a quarterback, those quarterback transfers, I think that's promising for them. Um,
Yeah,
I think that you have a chance um, to, you know, do something above what person may have that wrote this article, but at the same time, I mean, if you're just flip flopping games, I think five is like kind of that sweet spot, right? Like if you want to go exact games here, I might hit the five here. Say they might lose Maryland or Nebraska as well, but if they're playing well, I mean, again, they could nab Iowa and Minnesota and get that 8 wins, and you could be screwed. So I'd say just stay away from this.
Yeah, stay away from them.
I think you don't put any money on Michigan State because I mean this you don't know what the hell is happening up there in East.
Yeah, I would not touch that line. I mean, just stay away from it. You know, because they, like you said, you know, they could just have a total collapse. So,
Yeah,
and the God, that would be rough after just signing Mel Tucker to whatever that
yeah,
extension was.
yeah. So good luck, Spartan fans. Next
Yeah,
up,
have fun.
yeah, have fun. It could be good, could be bad. Nobody knows. Have fun. Minnesota is the next on this list, and they have them under a 7 game win total. Have the line set at 7, and they said pick the under for the Gophers. Um, I mean, I, I mean, I think the line at 7 is pretty solid for Minnesota. Here are
Yeah,
the 6 wins they think they're gonna grab: Eastern Michigan, which I think is probably a win. The Raging Cajuns of Louisiana. They've got Michigan State on here as a win, which again I think that's going to be a slugfest. I think that game could flip flop. They have Nebraska on here as a win. Boy, they think Nebraska's probably winning 2 games this year. At this, I mean,
yeah,
I mean, like
seriously.
what the hell? Um, they have at Purdue as another win and at Northwestern as a win. They've got their losses being at Iowa, which could flip. They've got Michigan as a loss, probably right. At North Carolina as a loss, probably at Ohio State as a loss, probably right, and Wisconsin and Illinois at home as a loss. And I don't know about Wisconsin, and we've already talked about Illinois. I mean, again, this is one of those I probably wouldn't touch with a 40-foot pole. I mean, what the fuck is going on with PJ Fleck in these Minnesota Gophers? I know there was some controversy about his punishment tactics with players and stuff. Nothing like Northwestern, but I mean, like it. I mean, he addressed them during Big Ten Media Day. Didn't seem to really be a big deal. Um, I think it was just them trying to stir up, some bad publicity for them. But any press is good press, is what they say. So I mean, at least we're talking about Minnesota. What are your thoughts on this? I think that this could easily be an 8-win football team if they can beat Iowa, Wisconsin, or Illinois, which I think all those games are probably winnable for them. But at the same time, they're saying that they could probably lose to Nebraska or in state. But I don't know. I mean, this is just they're just such an enigma.
Yeah, I can see them winning 8 games. I think that's a solid football program over there in Minnesota. Obviously, you know, have a rich history in Minnesota. The program seems to be on the come up again since it's like days in the 40s or whatever. Um, but I could see them winning 8 games. I think they probably could beat Michigan State. I think they definitely beat Nebraska. You know, they're probably um, so they have them losing to Ohio State
Yep,
and Michigan.
yep. And one of
Uh,
those games, Michigan at home, Ohio State on the road, which those are probably L's.
yeah,
And they've got them losing to Wisconsin at home and Illinois at home, which I think I just those are the games I would
that one's
circle.
iffy.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think those are how you get probably 8 wins, as if Wisconsin and Illinois. But I think people are really high on Wisconsin because they've got quarterback transfer coming in that's looking good. Um, Bortles have been very friendly to the Badgers, and that was kind of the one thing people said they didn't have was a solid quarterback, and now they've got it. So I think a lot of people are putting a lot of stock in the Badgers as far as being able to be competitive in their side of the Big Ten, which I have no problem with. I mean, the Big Ten
yeah,
needs more competition. But again, like you said, Minnesota's got players. They got players and they got swag. They got good uniforms. They attract recruits better than they have in the past. I mean, and PJ Fleck has never been a terrible coach.
yeah,
I think that this is another one where you have kind of 4 or 5 of these teams in the Big Ten that you just it could swing either way. It just depends on how these 3 or 4 teams end up playing momentum wise. Like I think Illinois, Minnesota, Nebraska, and Michigan State, along with maybe even you could throw in Wisconsin, are kind of the 5 teams where whatever the projection is, it could go one way or another. And those are probably the 5 teams I would like for sure stay away from because we
yeah.
just
That's
don't know. I mean, you could throw Illinois in there, but I think that most people are confident about where Illinois is at. Um, I mean, Minnesota as far as they're thinking only 6 wins for Minnesota. I think smash the over. I smash the over on the Gophers. I really like them this year, and I think that they can nab one of those continental.
Yeah, I think they definitely nabbed the Illinois one on honestly. So, I'm smashing that over every time. I think they could get up to 8 wins pretty easily.
I agree. Next on the list is the Cornhuskers. They've got them over 6 wins. They think they're going to get at least 7. I don't hate that for Matt Rule and his coaching these guys. But here are the wins they've got listed, and starts out with a one that I think is probably an L. They think they're going to beat Colorado. I think they're going to lose Colorado. And they've got Northern Illinois after that, which is probably a W. But Nebraska. I just Ooh, I mean, is Casey Thompson going to be that guy? I mean, that's the question. Is Casey Thompson? I mean, we saw him at Texas; he's not bad, but is he going to continue to be that guy up there in Lincoln that's going to be able to produce those kind of wins? We'll see. They have Louisiana Tech as a win, which probably is a win. Uh, Iowa as a win, which again, is probably a slugfest. Could both ways. Maryland as a win, don't really like that. I mean, Northwestern and Purdue as the other wins. Got their losses being at Illinois, Michigan, at Michigan State, at Minnesota, and at Wisconsin. At losses. Um, got them at 7 exactly. So that's what they're favoring is the over here. How do you feel about the Cornhuskers coming in this year?
Um, that's it's another tough team to judge based on Matt Rule, showing up. Obviously, he's going to bring in some pretty good coaching that you know is going to be competitive in the Big Ten. He is an NFL coach. Um, but geez, 7 wins for Nebraska is tough. I think they probably get 6. I think they're 6-6 probably. They get a bowl, but that's about it. They probably lose that bowl if I had to guess. So we'll see on Nebraska. I don't think Casey Thompson is really that guy. I think he is good enough to get you 6 wins on pretty much any team that he's on. He's a solid, just like older college quarterback at this point. Um, he played pretty decent at Texas, so I see them winning 6 games. I like you said, they're not beating Colorado. Um, so
Yeah,
I think
smash
6
that
is
over
probably
three and a
fair.
half on Colorado. Smash that over three and a
Oh
half.
my God, smash it. Yeah.
um,
Like Colorado's ceiling for me is like 10. Like
I mean, it's possible. I mean, people are really doubting
yeah.
the Buffaloes, but I think they're actually going to be
Gar
surprisingly
Sanders
good.
is a lot better than people think he is.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's going to be kind of the quote unquote shock, but it won't be a shock to us because we're Buffalo stands over here. Um,
Yeah, we know.
but yeah, I mean, I think that you look at Nebraska, and like you said, I think it just comes down to how well Casey Thompson plays, right? I mean, the defense is going to be sussy. And history will tell you that Matt Rule's first year, wherever he's gone, has been kind of rough, but the second year is always a ton better. And I think that right now, having Matt Rule as a coach is attractive for people that are going to want to enter the transfer portal after this season. But it could be rough this year for Cornhuskers fans. Um, I think you have to smash. I don't know, man. I mean, again, having Illinois as a loss is kind of iffy to me. I mean, go up here to the top where they have him. I had him at over 6.5. I mean, again, I think Nebraska's in that group of teams where we don't really know what's going to happen with them. I think if you were going to do a bet on this team, I would say just smash it at exactly 6. I think you're probably
Yeah.
right on, Zach. I think that this is a 6-win football team. I think they lose one of these at Iowa, Maryland, or Colorado. I mean, I could see them even losing at home to Purdue, because I mean we don't know how good the Boilermakers are going to be. I don't think they're going to be Garbo, but I don't think they're going to be like fighting for the Big Ten championship game or anything. I think that they have those games. They come up and bite you every couple years. They have some of those shockers. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't hate the losses here. One again that I would question would be the Illinois loss because I think those are match teams playing each other. I think it's going to come down to who turns the ball over less, plays better defense in games because I think those offenses match up pretty fucking good. Um,
Yeah.
and again, Michigan State, another
Oh,
like we said, another team that we wouldn't touch. Again, they have that as
Hold
a
on, I think
loss.
someone
That could
knocked at
flip.
my door real quick.
Okay.
Hold on. Be
Um.
right back.
So I mean, when we talk about the way that Nebraska looks, I mean this is a team that has a lot of potential, folks. But I mean this is also a team where you could see the bottom falling out here because of the fact that they did lose some players, and they're trying to build chemistry with new guys from the transfer. So I mean, this is a really big year for Nebraska, and I really like the way they look coming into the season. But I think when you look at the Big Ten, there's so many question marks around a lot of these teams in the Big Ten. I think you're going to have a tough time finding a lot of solid answers until the middle of the year, really. So the next team on this list, Zach, is Northwestern, and they said, and they're favoring the under 3.5 wins this year for the Wildcats. They think they're only going to win 3 games, and they think the 3 wins are going to be Howard, UTEP, and Duke. Um, which that Duke game may be a toss-up as well. They have them losing to Illinois, Iowa, Maryland, Nebraska, Rutgers, Minnesota, Penn State, Wisconsin, and they think Northwestern's going to be poop PP. And you know what? I say smash the under. Fuck it. I mean, I think they lose. I think they lose to Duke too. I think it's a 2-win football team. I've never liked Northwestern. I think they've always been
Yeah.
overrated. Um, but obviously, people think they could start 3-0 with their 3 non-conference wins, which is the only wins they have for Northwestern. They don't think they're going to win a single conference game, which again, I don't know if I believe that. I think you just smash the exact win total at 3, because if they drop the Duke game, which is on the road, by the way, it's not at home. They're traveling to Duke to play that game. I think you could flip flop maybe the Purdue game. I think Northwestern and Purdue, they're going to probably have at the same level here. We'll know in a minute, but I think that they're going to have Purdue also losing a ton of games this year. But if you were going to bet on this, I say just smash the exact win.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Yeah. So I mean,
I
and there's
don't
not
know,
much to
like
talk about. Yeah, there's not much. I mean, it's just they're just
Yeah.
bad. They're just bad. I mean, and the off season stuff has not been good either. So I mean,
Yeah.
it could be really detrimental to the Wildcats. I think it's fucking bad. So let's just skip them because they're just. I mean, I think that could be just a 3. And the thing is the under is favored. They have them at 3.5. They don't think they're going to win. I think they're likely to win. But I think if you're wanting to make money, you have to go with exact win.
Yeah.
Ohio State's the next on this list, and I know we've talked about them for a bit. And they've got a new quarterback as well. A lot of top teams this year have new guys coming in, and I think that a lot of people stocks in these guys that are high caliber recruits that are replacing NFL talent, and I think that sometimes it doesn't pan out as well as people think it is, and this could definitely be one of those situations. But here is what they have. They have the under 10.5 being the favorite here for Ohio State at plus 110 for the, or sorry, minus 110 for the under. But this article says hit the over. They think they're going to win 11 games this year. Here are the 11 wins. I'm going to rattle them off. Youngstown State, W. Western Kentucky,
100-0.
Yeah. Western Kentucky, W.
Yeah.
At Notre Dame, W. Which again, with Sam Hartman being the quarterback for the Golden Domers this year, that's not going to be an easy win. And it wasn't an easy win last year. I think people forget that Notre Dame hung around that whole entire game, and then their season just tanked. They used every single ounce of emotion and talent in that Ohio State game and then dropped to Marshall the next week. I mean, it was at home. At home, they lost to Marshall.
Yeah.
I mean, that took so much wind out of their sails. I think if they would have pulled that upset off against Ohio State last year, they probably don't lose because the confidence would just be up. But I think they were just so demoralized by the fact that they were this close to beating them and just couldn't hang on. Again, turnovers from the quarterback position were the detriment to them in that game. And I think having Sam Hartman, that transfer from Wake Forest, coming in, I think that's the big key. And I think he's not going to turn the ball over that much. He's a smart dude. I think this is one of those guys that will get drafted in the first round because of the fact he has high football IQ. I mean, you have to remember, Wake Forest is a very highly academic school. I mean, not a lot of people get into Wake Forest. You have to have a huge GPA coming out of high school to even get into Wake Forest. And so you're messing with a dude that's smart as fuck. And I think that with the talent surrounding him and that head coach for Notre Dame, Freeman, I think he's a great head coach. I really like his attitude. I know he's young, but I think he's on the right path with this team. And I think that that game again is going to be a close game. And maybe this year Notre Dame comes up and gets them because of the fact they're going to have the more experienced quarterback this time around. So be careful about that one. At Indiana, mark that a W, 100-0.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Maryland again. Maryland always plays Ohio State tough for that first half of the game, and then it seems like that second half it just seems to just crumble for Maryland every year. I mean, I have high hopes for them every year when they play Ohio State, and they just and usually for that first half though they hang on. And so I'm thinking, if Maryland's going to be, like we said, a possible 8-win program this year, they're going to have to try to, push some of these upper echelon teams, and I think this could be the year where again, maybe they don't win the game, but I think that game's going to be a lot closer than the spread's probably going to be when that line comes out. Um Michigan State, they've got us a W. I'll take that. Minnesota, a W for Ohio State. I'll take that. At Purdue, a W. I guess take that because, I mean, they're probably thinking Purdue's going to be like a 3-win football team just like fucking Northwestern. Penn State, they have as a W. That one's not going to be easy either. I think Penn State is one of those teams that could be playing for the Big Ten championship game at the end of the year instead of Ohio State if things roll the way they should. They have a lot of talent packed in for those Indy Lions. That one's going to be slugfest. And then at Wisconsin and at Rutgers as wins. They have the only loss for Ohio State being at Michigan. What are your thoughts on Buckeyes this year?
I think I mean, I think I have to agree with just the win total of 11. They lose to Michigan. Um, that I don't, I, I don't. I have to see them losing to Notre Dame just because of one of how close they played last year, and that Marcus Freeman is a really good coach, and that they are steadily supposed to be improving year after year. So if there's going to be a year, it'd be this year. Now I can also see a floor of 8 wins for Ohio State because of teams like you mentioned, such as Maryland, which could be a school like if any year is their year to beat Ohio State, it's probably this year,
Same.
right? So I could see Ohio State dropping a few games to teams like that. And like Penn State, um, like that's another one that's tough. So
Yeah.
we'll see for Ohio State. Ryan Day is a solid coach. He seems to be a quarterback whisperer. So hopefully Ohio State can still remain on top here. Um, but I mean, I could see them. I don't think they'll be in the playoff. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, right now the over 10.5 would be the one that make you money. Vegas is favoring under 10.5. They think that 10 wins is probably the ceiling for them, and I could see that happening because of those three games you mentioned. So, this article has a lot of faith in the Buckeyes. They think they're going to have a really good season again this year. I just think that this one could the other way, and I think that, like you said, I think easily see 8 wins, maybe even 9. So I would probably smash the under on the Buckeyes this year. And if they hit that over 10.5, have fun making money on that. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah,
But I think me and you are in agreement. This I think smash the under. Vegas favors the under. I think they're probably spot on this one. Um, Penn State next on here. They've got them at over 9.5 wins. They think the Nittany Lions get 10. Here are the 10 wins they have the Nittany Lions at. They got West Virginia as a win. I think that game again probably gonna be a slugfest because that's the game of the year. And you know how first games of the year go for some teams. You're not exactly gelling. It's your first actual game, not against somebody that you share a locker room with. And those games can kind of be a little iffy. But I think they pull out the W there. I don't think West Virginia is super here. I think that's a win. Delaware by 100 probably. UMass by 100 probably.
yeah.
At Illinois, I like that as a win. Indiana by 100. Iowa as a win. Maryland, and they've got them beating Michigan. They've got them beating Michigan State on the road, beating Northwestern, beating Rutgers. Their only loss for Penn State being Ohio State. Um, they went 7-6 last year, and right now, if you were going to try to make money, actually under 9.5 here. They are favoring 10 games this year. Nittany Lions. What are your thoughts on Penn State?
10 games. 10 games is exactly what I'd give them right now with losses to Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah,
Um, that I don't see them losing to any other team in the Big Ten. I don't see them losing to West Virginia. And any of those, obviously, they're not going to get upset by any of those cupcake schools. So, um, 10 wins. That's exactly what I see. I
Okay.
think they're going to lose to Michigan
Yeah,
and Ohio State.
I think you're probably right. I think Michigan, Ohio State, L's. And then I just think that West Virginia game, the spread's gonna be a lot um bigger than the game will probably end up being. I think the West Virginia's gonna give them a run for their money, but I don't think West Virginia wins that game. So keep an eye on that spread for that West Virginia game. But I would still pick, if you were going to go money line, I would still pick Penn State to win the game. Purdue is the next one on the list, and they have over 5 wins for the Boilermakers, so a little bit better than Northwestern. They've got the 5 wins being Fresno State, Syracuse, Illinois, Indiana, Northwestern, and Wisconsin as the 5 wins. Uh, well, that's six. That's 6 wins. They have them at 6 wins. Gotta have
Mhm.
more. So they have them at 6 wins. If you want to make money, you would select the under here. They have the losses being at Virginia Tech, at Iowa, at Michigan, Minnesota, at Nebraska, and Ohio State as the losses. So they think 6 and for Purdue. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because that Syracuse game might be an L, and I think that Illinois game might be an L. Because if you want to smash that over on Illinois, they're going to have to beat Purdue. And I think
Yeah.
the losses, again, Nebraska, that could be a win for them. Minnesota could be a win for them. So again, this is another team where you select the over, which you're not going to make any money selecting the over. I would go exact wins is where you're going to probably get money here, and I would probably say 6. I would say smash just 6 exactly here because I could see one of these games flip flopping from a loss to a win. And I think the two games you got to look at are Nebraska and Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. This is one I wouldn't touch. I just think Purdue is one of those programs because they're gonna get who knows, they might beat Ohio State this year. Like you never know with Purdue. They are known to knock off those like 1, 2, 1 and 2s. I mean, so that's a team that you don't touch because I could see them being 6-6 with wins against like Michigan.
Yeah,
Like that's the kind of team that Purdue is. So I'm not touching it.
yeah,
Exact wins probably put them at 6.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah. I mean
that that
that's
that
all you can
that's a
say.
crapshoot.
That's all you can say. Two teams left here. Rutgers here. They've got them at 4 win total, a 4 game win total here for the Scarlet Knights, and this says pick the under. They said they're probably not going to win 4 games, but they have 4 games listed here as wins, but they're not going to go over. So 4 wins that they've got are Temple. They think they're going to beat Virginia Tech. So they think Rutgers is going to beat Virginia Tech, but Purdue is going to lose to Virginia Tech. I don't understand that logic because
Yeah,
if I was going to have that, then I would just have Purdue beating Virginia Tech and have Rutgers losing to Virginia Tech. Like, what is Virginia Tech's win total like 2? Like, I mean, we're going to go over the ACC or the Pac-12 next time. So I mean, you're going to find out. But I mean, like, I feel like that right there is a huge measuring stick for both of these programs. And if you're going to have Rutgers beat Virginia Tech, how the hell are you going to have Purdue losing to them? I just don't understand that logic. But okay, so they have Rutgers beating Virginia Tech and Temple, beating Wagner, and beating Northwestern. Those are the 4 wins they've got, and they have them losing on the road to Indiana, on the road to Iowa, at home to Maryland, on the road at Michigan, at home to Michigan State, at home to Ohio State, on the road in Happy Valley against PSU, then at Wisconsin as another loss. And just to let you know, Rutgers has only won 5 games once in the last 8 years. So
yeah,
if you're going to pick the over here, which Vegas is favoring the over, they're favoring 5 wins this year for Rutgers. I think you would have to put the game on here that might flip flop as the Indiana game, right? Indiana could be a W for Rutgers, and that would be your 5th win of the year. So if Vegas, that's what Vegas is thinking, is they're probably going to pull that win against Indiana, but I don't see them beating Virginia Tech if Purdue is going to lose to Virginia Tech. So smashing the under
yeah. I agree with
at
that.
4 and under is probably right, if by that logic, because I don't understand how you can have a team like Purdue losing to Virginia Tech, even though it is on the road. Um, and then have Rutgers beating Virginia Tech at home. I don't get that at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the Virginia Tech stuff is wild. Um, that is just insane. Rutgers, I got to see them probably smashing an exact win total of 3.
I mean, yeah, so the under, yeah, pick the under, I guess, for this. I mean, 5 wins. If it's going to be 5, you're going to have them beat Virginia Tech at home, and you're going to have them beat Indiana on the road. Because I think Wagner, Northwestern, and Temple are probably wins. And that Temple game might be an L. I mean, I just don't know how good Rutgers is coming into this. It doesn't seem like they're going to be very good. Um, I mean, they're not ruling out possibly beating Indiana or Maryland. Um, but I mean, it's more likely this team goes 3-9 than goes 5-7 this year. Um, but the way they do it might be a lot different than the way they're projecting. Um,
Yeah,
so rounding out the Big Ten here, folks, is Wisconsin. They've got Wisconsin over the 8.5 here. They think Wisconsin's a 9-win football team this year. More likely than winning 8 or less are the wins they have for the Badgers. They have Buffalo on the road against Washington State, on the road against Georgia Southern, on the road against Illinois, on the road against Indiana. They have Iowa at home, at Minnesota on the road, Nebraska at home, Northwestern at home, Rutgers at home. Losses they have for Wisconsin, get this, are Ohio State and Purdue. Um,
jeez.
this guy thinks that Badgers are going to do. They think Nick Evers is the man. What is your thoughts on Badgers heading into this?
I think they're going to be good. I don't know if they're going to be 10 wins good. 9.
I think the over, which Vegas is favoring, is probably the right way to go here. But I think they probably lose another one of these games. Which one will it be? I don't know. Um, Washington State on the road in Pullman is not going to be easy. Beating the Cougars at home is never easy. Ask anybody. Fall into Washington State in the past, especially when you have it as your non-conference games. That's a really tough draw for the Badgers. But I guess Washington State once again is supposed to be like a 3-win football team. So I don't really want to rule that out as a win for Wisconsin. And I guess I have to have more faith in Nick Evers, right? I think that's what it comes down to, right? Is he's going to be the guy? Um, going to have to play better than he played against Texas. Um, but I think the Big Ten is kind of more for him than the Big 12 was. Um, I like 9-3 here. I think they lose probably another one of these games. Don't think this is a 10-win football team, but I think if you want to pick the over, which it is favored, um, I think you just go exact wins and just hit the 9. I guess. If you're looking to make money on the Badgers, that's the only thing you probably do.
Yeah, I agree. But I like Nick Evers. I like him a lot. So him being like, I mean, I could see him throwing, for I didn't see him throwing for, 40 touchdowns, you know? Like he could have that kind of a season. He can be in Heisman kind of talks, especially if the Badgers do win, 10 or more games. I just don't think that they have the roster talent necessary to, you know, slide through the entire gauntlet of the Big Ten with only losing to Ohio State and Michigan. You know.
No, no, they have Ohio. They don't play Michigan.
Oh, they don't. Oh, yeah, it's
They have them
Purdue.
losing on the road to Purdue, which again makes me beg the
Yeah,
question: why the hell do you have Purdue losing to Virginia Tech on the road?
yeah,
I don't understand that. But again, you have Luke Fickell as the first year head coach. Former Cincinnati head coach, and they're putting a lot of stock into him as well, just like kind of Matt Rule. They're putting a lot of stock in Luke Fickell. Go ahead though.
yeah. No, no. I mean, I completely agree with that too. But yeah, with only I don't think they lose to Purdue, but I could see them losing to other Big Ten teams. I could see them because let's see, they have. I gotta pull up their schedule now just to make sure. Let's see. So I I could see them losing. I can see them losing to Minnesota.
Minnesota and Illinois on the road.
Yeah,
And
you know
Nebraska
what?
is not going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Nebraska's not going to be easy. Like nine, I think 9 wins.
Yeah, I think smash the exact 9 on this. I think 3 losses for the Badgers. They get a super good bowl game. I mean,
Yeah.
a good season for a first year head
Hey,
coach.
GG
Yeah,
had a good season.
yeah, yeah. I think if I mean in and if you beat Ohio State, you're probably looking at them being in the Big Ten championship game. But that also depends on how well Ohio State's quarterback plays. I think that has a lot to do with that. So yeah, that kind of rounds out the Big Ten here. I mean, kind of some surprises here. I think it only got kind of surprising at the end with Purdue and Rutgers having that weird Virginia Tech thing going on. But I think most of these
Yeah,
lines are pretty solid. I think some of these teams are a little undervalued and some of them are a little overvalued, but it's not super egregious. I think most of these lines are pretty spot on, like we said. Most didn't even touch because it's just so up in the air with some of these middle of the pack Big Ten teams. So, I mean, I think the Big Ten's going to be kind of a hot race in the middle, but again, we know who the good teams are here. And right now, they're
yeah,
thinking the 4 good teams in the conference are Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Wisconsin. Those teams I think are going to be good, and I don't think I'm going to be any mood to debate that unless, like we said, unless Maryland hops up and has a really good year, if Illinois hops up and has a really good year, or Minnesota. I think those are kind of the 3 other teams you have to look at. And Michigan State, we'll throw Michigan State in there. I think that they could have a decent year. It just depends on a lot of these middle of the season, games. And I think that when you're talking about teams that have kind of a similar, like, roster makeup and similar kind of talent, it's going to come down to, inches some of these games. And I think that that's going to be fun to
yeah,
watch, but I don't think that it's not going to be fun to watch as in, oh, we're watching 2 ranked teams play, but I think it's going to be fun to watch as in these games are going to be a lot closer and a lot more thrilling, but you're not going to have any like title contention like hopes or anything. But if you're into close games, you're into games that come down to the wire, there's going to be a ton of them with these middle of the pack teams. I think that's going to be fun to watch if you're a casual football fan. You're just turning it on. You're like, hey, you know, Maryland and Purdue are tied at 28 in the third quarter. I mean, I'm tuning in. I mean, not because there's
yeah,
anything on the line here, but it's just fun to watch these games come down to crunch time. And I think this is the conference where you're probably going to have a lot of games in crunch time, but not a lot of good teams in crunch time. I think Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, I think they roll through most of their Big Ten schedules, and I think that really only when they collide are we going to have games that are going to mean it.
yeah, for sure. I completely agree with that. And but I can't wait for that time when you can just Saturday afternoon throw on, you know, West Virginia at Penn State, just watch Penn State roll through them.
I mean, I that game, I still don't know. Yeah, I think if they have Garrett Green coming back, starting quarterback, I like the way he played against OU, but I don't know if that's the Garrett Green we're going to get all year. Um, so I think that, but him being a dual threat guy is definitely something that worked against OU defense. But I think again, that's completely changed this year. I don't think the OU is going to
Yeah,
struggle with that. They play this year. I don't even know if they play each other. But I mean, I think again, Big Ten interesting conference to talk about, but just not interesting at the top to talk about. I think it's interesting from those down. And speaking of stuff that's not really important and doesn't really matter, so Coach Harbaugh suspended for 4 games. Let's just get into that before we get out of here real quick. So he gets in trouble for the NCAA for I guess buying hamburgers for guys and not reporting it as something that he did. I guess he was buying them for recruits. Is that what it is? He was buying them for,
I believe so.
yeah,
I
and
think he
it's
just met with someone and bought them a hamburger. I think it was literally one guy. I think he just bought like one recruited cheeseburger.
yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah, so I mean, and again, the 4 games he's missing out on, like you said, are not are
it's like
not
Eastern Carolina,
yeah,
UNLV.
the four
Yeah, I
games
mean,
you have here that they're going to be missing out on are LV, East Carolina, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. So I mean,
Yeah.
literally, like me and you could probably coach those games, and we wouldn't even have to even say anything in the headset. Let the assistant coaches
All
take
right.
over and
You
just
you
clap like
boys
that.
go out there and have fun.
Yeah, literally, it's go
You
out
boys
there
go
and
out there
have
and
fun.
ball.
I mean, the only game that really even like and like gives me a hint of is probably East Carolina. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think UNLV is that good, and Bowling Green is trash. I mean, Rutgers, we already know what their win total is. It's PP time for Rutgers, unless they're playing Virginia Tech, which they think they're just gonna roll. But I mean, I think that if Rutgers is good enough to beat Virginia Tech, maybe you give them a little bit of a shake, but I just don't think that's realistic either. So I mean, I think again, this isn't going to affect anything for Michigan. Again, the NCAA just dropping the ball and jerking themselves off, trying to just make something of themselves. And I think you're not going to really have a bad effect here. The non-conference is just not strong in this year. Their schedule strength, I think, is probably like a C minus, with tough games being uh, Ohio State and maybe Penn State. I mean, those are the two games you kind of circle on the schedule as tough games for them. I say C minus for schedule strength. Not worried about him missing these games.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
I wouldn't worry about it whatsoever if I'm Michigan. I mean, that should be a 4-0 start.
oh yeah,
You know, Harbaugh should be walking in ready to go 5-0. I mean,
yeah, he's not worried. I don't think he's worried. I don't think any fan is worried. And I think that again, you're looking at a really good Michigan team, and I don't think you're going to have a lot of drop off. And that's going to wrap it up for us. Zach, thank you for joining me
yeah,
today. I appreciate you coming in and taking some time. Travel safe. And
yeah.
when we meet up next time, we'll go through another conference and give you guys what we think is going to happen. And that's going to wrap it up. Any last words for us, bud?
You know, I hate that we can't talk about the Big 12 every day, but Boomer Center.
Yeah, there you go, brother. All right. I appreciate you, man. I will see you soon.
Yeah.